Kajialang kinhun menteri balalong mentagasi kalaitai ba shimrai kimat bayade ba kamang pisa balabe da BRICS New Development Bank ban kyntiew kam jngohkai pyrthei ka jylla ba kajing menjer kindon kumno ban ay ka sungat jingdan jingem khanang ban yo bha Rupang hakayo kam yo jam kapuli puthi kitu gibreo ki bha khatop economic weaker sections ki ba omde ki ba yo bha na khatop scheduled tribe scheduled caste but ki others backward classes.
5 agendas, I'm sorry. So out of the 5 agendas, three required more discussion, and some of the cabinet colleagues who were in charge of that department were not present. So we could not go ahead, and we have deferred 3 of the agendas, which I cannot share because it's been deferred. But we took up the other 2 agendas. One was regarding an approval of an externally aided project under the name of the Meghalaya Eco Tourism Infrastructure Development Project. This is a $98 million project from NDB, and now the NDB requires, and the government of India requires, these EAPs to be approved by the cabinet. So we have approved that in the cabinet, and apart from that agenda, we have also approved the office memorandum, which is for the guidelines of issuance of income and asset certificate for the economically weaker section in the state of Meghalaya. If you remember and recall that in the parliament, in the assembly, when we had the session, somebody had raised about the certificates for the economically weaker sections. And there the guidelines or the OM had been issued by the government of India, but state government had not or issued the OMs in reference to that. So that was rectified in one way, and today we have approved the OM, and this basically is for reservation for economically weaker sections in civil posts and services in government of India offices and posts, and admissions in educational institutions, which are obviously central institutions. This, as I mentioned in my reply in the assembly also, that this is applicable to persons who are not covered under the existing schemes of reservation for the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, and the socially and educationally backward classes. For development of infrastructure for experiential ecotourism in Meghalaya. So basically, this will be related to ecotourism projects, infrastructure, projects like landscaping and building of tourism amenities in different locations. It also looks at revamping overall infrastructure for tourism. It looks at different cultural aspects and how to improve the infrastructure around those areas. Heritage walks like the David Scott Trail, different aspects of the tourism spots that we have. So basically, it's in and around the overall development of infrastructure throughout the state. We're also looking at holistic village developments. So we're going to adopt villages in one way and then improve the overall tourism projects around those areas. There is also some component of road connectivity also in that. So things like these, there are many components. I don't think it'll be possible for me to go through all of them. But in nutshell, basically, it's regarding the infrastructural development around different tourist destinations of Meghalaya. And this is applicable to minusing those categories who are already under the existing schemes of reservations of all the scheduled tribe and the caste, scheduled caste, and economically and socially backward. So the families whose incomes are less than 8 lakhs, they will get this economically weaker section certificate. But if these families also, in spite of having 8 lakhs and less income, if they still have 5 acres of agricultural land and above, they will not be entitled to the certification. If they have residential flat of 1,000 square feet, if they have residential plot of 100 square yards, and if they have residential plot of 200 square yards in non-municipal areas, even they will not be entitled. So we had to only approve these guidelines and these OMs, which is what was done today.
Follow that carried over in government job. The government for many years has follow that carries over. So what's the
So I don't want to comment on it. You're right. This carried over aspect is there. It's in the rules in para 2. But at this point in time, I don't want to say much about it because it's also it's kind of sub judice in one way if you look at it. So allow us to do the homework in this. As I said again, it's a complete you know issue that has been there like from day one of the entire reservation policy which has been created, and from the point since the posts were created. So therefore, for every post that we created from the time the reservation was done, the entire backlog from entire process from many years, 50 years. So you can well imagine what kind of exercise we're looking at. So all I'm saying is that we are aware of all these points that you mentioned, but I would refrain from making any comments on that at this point in time, because this is a court matter, this is a court case, and we are working on it. Once we're ready with the affidavit and present it in the court, I'll be able to answer and give clarification to all these questions.
The proposed setting up of a rooster system for implementation of the reservation.
Yeah, so all these areas also were discussed today also. It's a very large, humongous and complicated exercise because we need to see all departments for past many years, and so therefore the exercise to complete this entire aspect of the roster system is not something that can be achieved in a matter of days or weeks. It requires, and it's also very sensitive in nature, as you can imagine. So therefore the process is on. We are working on it. I'm hopeful that very soon we should be able to come out with a proper affidavit to be replied back to the court, and accordingly we'll be able to take the decision to move forward. But the departments and the entire government, all the other departments and the Chief Secretary herself, they are working on this, and as I said, it's a massive exercise. So it is taking some time, but we are confident we should be able to complete it. So the meeting that I went to Delhi was regarding the group of ministers that was formed under the GST Council. And the mandate of the GOM under the GST Council is to look at the tax, the GST tax, which will be applicable for horse racing, horse betting, for casinos, and for online gaming. So therefore, with the industry expanding, the clarity on the tax for these kind of games and horse betting and horse racing and other activities, there is some lack of clarity. Like for example, there is a discussion whether online gaming is a game of skill or game of chance, and there are many court cases going on around it. So the people from the online gaming section feel that it's more of skills, and therefore they should not be taxed at what the lottery is being taxed or other activities of gambling are being taxed, and therefore they should be not in the 28% category, but they should be brought down to 18% category. So these kind of issues are there, not discussed today at all, but since you asked me, I'm clarifying. This has nothing to do with the state government. It's completely government of India, and I happen to be the chairman of the GOM, and that's why in that capacity, I'm telling you. And of course, then there are issues of one point that whether we tax the 18% or 28% on what? Do you tax it on the entire turnover or entire money that has been put into the pot? Or do you tax only on the basis of the service that the particular organization or company provides? For example, when there is an issue of, say, horse racing or the betting, the people bet, and then money is put into, say, an escrow account. Out of this amount, nobody takes the money. Then the winners ultimately share majority of the money, and it goes back into the players' accounts. They only take about 10-20% of the commission that is there. So should they be taxed on all the 100%, or should they be taxed only on the service that they're providing and the commission that they get? So the net value of the services, is that important, or the gross value? So there are conflicting views about this. There are a large number of countries in the world are looking at net value, what they call the value of the commission, the services, platform fees. There are different names given to that. So another complication that comes up in this issue is, how do you define the net? And who defines the net? So there, for example, suppose you go into a casino, while you're in there, is it based on the chips that you buy? Is it based on the number of times you play the chips that you've bought? So that could be 10 times. So if you bought 100 rupee chips and you play 10 times, it becomes 1,000. So are you charged on 1,000 or on 10 rupees? Then after that, when you're inside there, you eat food or you take different services, like maybe you might have a drink. So is that going to be taxed also along with that on the 28% or 18%, or will it be on the excise? So all these complications are there in this entire thing. And the GST Council decided and felt that there should be a GOM that handles this, because you're talking of almost close to a turnover of 40,000, 50,000 crores that will be affected by the decision that this GOM takes. So it's a very critical decision that we're taking, and I have had multiple rounds of meetings and discussions with the honorable members. And we had the first meeting of this last time in Delhi, and the second meeting is going to be on the 18th of this month. And let's see, I hope we'll be able to take this discussion forward, because as I said, a large amount of turnover for different companies and many employment aspects, at the same time large revenue for the government of India and the state governments, is dependent on the decision taken by this.